21 years ago you started, and I think now you have over 1,100 branches. I'm sure that was not the plan when you started, but how has it evolved over the years, and when did you realize that it can be this big?
Firstly, thank you, Radhika, and thank you, ABP, for inviting me here. Uh, See, when we started or when I started this, I really didn't think so much about the size, but I really thought more about making an impact. And I knew that if you make an impact, size will follow. And we are very fortunate to be in India. It's the largest population in the world, so there's no problem with the market. So it's only a question of doing something right and getting that model right in the early phase. And if you ask me, the first maybe the 6, 7 years of we started was really getting the model right in terms of the quality delivery.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge challenge in any business, and especially more so in a service business. You can get a lot more easily things right in a product business because you just have to get the factory part right. And you just have maybe 1 or 2 factories, so it's kind of easy to control. But in a service business, it's extremely hard because you've got it running across so many different centers, and what your teachers do every week is the quality.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? So that took a long time for me to figure it out and get that right. And then once we got that right, it was only a question of simple math. You've got so many children in this country, so it's going to scale up.
You're skipping the operative part. Once you got it right, so how did you get it right? I think that's the question. There are a lot of
We've got only
entrepreneurs.
15 minutes here, so.
But perhaps the
Okay.
2 or 3 big errors you made and then rectified.
Okay, I think there are lots of errors you make as you go along in any business, but I wouldn't say they're errors as much as they are learning processes which every entrepreneur would go through, anybody running a business would go through. So let me tell you, the first thing is initially we didn't realize the importance of quality so much in the first phase. Actually, I ran this in 2 phases. So one is when I started this, but I had run about a year and a half before that. And at that phase, we didn't realize the importance of quality so much. But when I ran it the second time, I really understood that it is so much more important. So the first thing we did was, I spent personally a lot more time on quality than on marketing. I mean, just to put it in a very broad form. And getting the process right of quality required you to actually sit down with your team, the trainers basically, and have a small group of trainers initially and ensure you have a documented process for each day of training. And that's a very basic thing, but it took a lot of effort to get that right. And ensure that, how do you ensure that simple thing is delivered with the teachers everywhere? So we went to, as I would say, mundane things like getting a photocopy of the teacher's notes to see whether the trainer has done the right amount of training as much as expected. So like as mundane things like that. But sometimes the mundane things are the more powerful things in the long run. You don't have to do jazzy things sometimes to do well. You need to do the simple things, but do them consistently and do them. And you just need simple ideas sometimes. You don't need complicated ideas to do well. So we just figured out simple ideas to ensure quality is done right. And how do we scale that up? So other simple idea is, I mean, it's a simple looking back, but at that point of time it wasn't simple. Like, to become a trainer, it was not easy in our system. So to give you a simple example, we started off in, let's say, Chennai, and if I have to start a training in Hyderabad, so one couldn't just make a trainer in Hyderabad, and we had to do the training in Hyderabad. So we would fly down or send somebody by train from Chennai and get the training done, not just for the first or second training, but maybe for the whole year or maybe even for 2 years.
Right.
And that kind of investment in training, most people don't usually do. And I think those are the things which actually, looking back, helped us get the quality right. So it was, again, simple, mundane things, but just done that over consistently.
Right, but education, you're touching children's lives on a daily basis, and one aspect is, of course, getting the training of the teachers right. But when the business is as scaled and as spread out, 1,100 branches, what kind of quality checks do you continue to make?
So you just do the same things over scale. So the challenge is, how do you do that? You just have to build people who are passionate and who can scale that up. And if you can't scale it up, don't scale your business. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you can't get that right, don't grow your business there. So it was a little bit of a discipline to get that right. Only then you scale your business.
Right.
And sometimes if you're scaling it too fast, slow it down so that you can get the quality right. So again, simple things, but not everybody actually takes that very seriously.
But so, of course, each company has a different policy in terms of how they would pick up a franchisee. But for example, what are the top three green tick marks when you see an application of a franchisee? And
Again,
the three red flags as well.
So let me tell you, when we started off the business, it was very simple. Anybody wants to start a franchise, he could start because we were starting it off. So if anyone is starting a business, anybody who believes in you, wants to take your ideas, you'll have to go with that. But as you go along, you refine your ideas because you figure it out, these people don't do things so well, this profile doesn't work. So each of you have your own data. So for us, when we look back and when we have it today, maybe in 5 years we may have a different model. But right now, our model is reasonably simple and straightforward. Any person who wants to give full time has a certain amount of capital and certain amount of experience, either it's working or maybe run a small business. That's it.
And red flags?
Very honestly, we don't have too many red flags except time. The person should not be doing multiple things. The person should be willing to get fully involved. So one is willing, because education is a business where you need to be involved. You can't run it remotely.
Right.
And there is an element of passion in getting children right. You can't, there's an element of time and passion. So we want people, that's it. So it's a very simple thing. You need to be, but it looks simple, but it's not easy. But getting people to spend time on a Saturday, Sunday, month after month, year after year is not easy.
Yeah.
So getting people who want to spend that, because that's the only time kids are free to come to class. So getting people who can give the time and willing to sacrifice their weekends month after month, year after year is not that easy. Especially, another thing I can tell you is we've got about 1100 plus franchisees, but you'll be surprised to know that more than 1000 of them are women.
Wonderful.
So
is that by plan, by design?
I think it's a mix of both. In the early phase, we got a lot more women because it looked part-time, just working on weekends, so it was easier to get. But over time, it became logical also because parents who want to put their little kids to a center to learn, they would trust a woman more than a man.
Sure.
But lately, we've got a lot more women coming in. But that's a little bit to digress. But you can imagine in India to get women to spend Saturday, Sundays out of home and not cook food for their husbands when they're at home, because that's the time they're at home, is not very easy.
Of course.
Because obviously husbands say that usually that they would expect their wives to be at home when they are at home. But to get that in the initial phase was little challenging, and it still is challenging in many parts of the country. But over time, we've kind of slowly built that up. So when you say red flag, just the time is the red flag for us.
Right. So, creating 1100 franchisees means that you've helped 1100 small businesses. You're creating entrepreneurs as well. So, is there one-on-one training with them? I mean, besides the curriculum aspect, but
Obviously,
how to run a business?
Obviously, because while we have got 1100 people who come to start a business, maybe more than 1000 of them have never run a business before. And you know that in India, women don't have agency as much as you would like them to have. So even to spend money, many of them may have to check with their husbands. So you want to spend on a business, they may have to check. But you got to slowly and surely get the confidence of both the family as possible, but get them the confidence to learn how to invest. In any business, you got to invest, take risks. So whether it's in your place, in marketing, how do you do the simple math numbers to show your profitability? So there's a whole lot of trainings. So we have to do that. There's no other way you can get the franchisees to be scale up and be successful. It's not that just sign up a center and then they're just done. That's when you start the work. So there's a lot of work, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so I think it'll be great if you can share stories of people whose lives have, turned
Lots
around.
and lots of stories I have to share. Let me tell you one very interesting, three interesting stories. One is, there was a lady who started a franchisee with us in 2005 at the age of 55. And she's still going strong now at the age of 75.
Oh, wonderful. I think that deserves a round of applause.
And she's among the top 5 centers in India for us, with close to 800 to 900 students she's managing. And you meet her, she's still energetic. She will inspire any of us in this room. And I meet her, I get inspired. There's one more story I can tell you of a guy from a very small town in Maharashtra. And he came to us at a time when he was struggling in life. So much so that he wanted a job in a local cooperative bank in a small town, paying him just 3,000 rupees a month. And he applied for the job and he was rejected. And he was really dejected and he didn't know what to do. And that time somebody told him about our program and he's kind of started in a small way, struggled. Fast forward 18 years later, he's got about 800 center students with him. He got a large office, large of his own property. And 2 years back, the same bank invited him to be on the board of the bank.
How things turn around, yeah.
So even now when he speaks about it, he's got tears in his eyes. So, and there's a whole lot of stories. We have so many women who, especially during the COVID time, there was a lot of challenges in families. And many of our women centers, because of the fact we could do it online, were the prime earning members for at least a few months till the husbands got back their business. And many of them, I would say from anywhere, any part of the country, I would say, are very thankful that that period of a year or so was something that they could be the key provider at home than anyone else.
So I have, two final questions. I think one to do with the fact that unemployment is a major issue in our country. And, when you tell us this story about how this young man's life turned around because he took up this business. So do you think there is a solve there? The franchisee model can be a good solve for a problem as massive, or at least
Absolutely.
solve part of the problem?
Absolutely. I'll give you some numbers. See, India has got about, there was a KPMG study done recently. India has got about 1 million people employed in franchising in the country. The US has got about 9 million people. So, and the US is 1/4 the size of India in terms of population. So you really see we can grow not just 9 times more to match their number, but into 4. So we can have 30 to 35 million people employed through franchising if we just do what US is doing right now. Not to do any better than them.
And then, can this also be a model to solve the problem of quality education in the country, and especially in, the country's tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities?
Well, I'm not qualified to answer that. Because education is not, there are many multiple factors. So the most important factor is school education. And whether you like it or not, we are just doing after school education. School education requires the government to do a lot of changes in the way they handle the school. Because today private schools are doing quite well, but they're out of reach for many people. But no doubt the private industry and the education industry has done enormously well by filling up the gaps. So we really asked me the solution to education in India, the state has to get involved a lot more. And that's why it will be reasonable and it will be accessible to a lot. And they have the power, they have the money to do it. People like us can surely do something, but still, I think they would do far better than us. But no doubt we can do certainly reasonable amount, like we reach about 150,000 students, but that's nowhere for the size of the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor, for speaking with us today, and thank you for being here at the Southern Rising Summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Radhika, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, Dinesh. Thank you very much. And may I invite Mr. Samrit Bhattacharya, National Sales Director, ABP Live Digital, to please come up on stage and felicitate Mr. Dinesh Victor. Thank you, Radhika. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Hamara Sheher, Hamara Hyderabad. The next session, very interesting, about Charminar and beyond. Hyderabad as Muse. Hyderabad is known for biryani, pearls and, of course, Muhammad Ali Beg. The director Qadir Ali Beg Theatre Foundation conferred the Padma Shri in 2014 for his work in